We all need another Kirblog now.
More Kirblogs.
I want to make the greatest Kirblog of them all. Welcome, you've reached the next stop on our journey throughout Pokécember, a solid month of all Pokemon-themed Kirblogs. The month of December. Happy holidays to one and all. This next installment is going to be my personal top 10 favorite Pokemon creatures. Specifically the monsters of the upwards of, I believe, 600, maybe even 700 by now. I sadly cannot remember. I will be warning ahead of time, probably in disappointment of a bunch of people, as I was able to learn from the previous Kirblog that I just made about kind of the early days for me with Red and Blue. Sadly, the 10 of these, for the most part, are from the first two generations of the franchise. That is with no offense whatsoever to the likes of Ruby and Sapphire, Diamond and Pearl, Black and White, X and Y at all. Nothing negative towards them whatsoever. But as you'll be able to see and kind of expectedly, a lot of these have to do with my attachment to them through stuff like the TV show and movies, particular episodes that really left a lasting impact on me as a kid. But I guess just to start off with, I'll give some runners-up that are not on this top 10 list, including the likes of Cubchoo, Sigilyph, Lucario, Deoxys, Rayquaza, Zangoose, Mawile, Hariyama, Blaziken, Sneasel, Ampharos, Nidorino, and of course, good old Meowth. Meowth somehow did not make it up to the top 10 for me, even though he's wonderful. I'm sure Devin Mack would be cursing my name right now, or calling me a jerk because he doesn't curse. But anyway, all right, so I'll start off. Just a couple little minor thoughts on each one. I won't run on too long for each of these, but starting things off. Number 10. Vanillite, and of course its two evolutions as well. Why do I like this one so much? Well, for one thing, those of you who know me know that I do have a little bit of an affinity for ice-type things in general, not just Pokemon, but Vanillite, Vanillish, and Vanillux I found to be genuinely adorable, and frankly, at the behest of a lot of people who don't feel this way, as inventive as any other like classic like out there non living creature related type of Pokemon like Magnemites, and Nosepass and all that. I think that they're really cute. I really didn't even realize the hatred for them until like way later, just because I played Black and White, just blind and was enjoying it for what it was. But I think they're super cute, and major props as well. I believe they're the first among the first Pokemon designed by a Westerner designer, James Turner, who works at Game Freak, a guy from England, I believe. And he also created Golurk and Trevenant, which are two visually not my favorites, but visually they're some of the coolest looking ones from the more recent games. So major props to him. And yeah, Vanillite, he's just I just want to eat him up, literally and figuratively. He's a cutie butt. All right, number 9. This one is super low on the list just because it is one of the more stereotypical ones. Is of course Mewtwo. For all the reasons you can expect, because he's cool, he's badass, he had a great movie, he had several movies and a special, being in Smash Brothers, now back again as well, and in the recent one, Mike Lucas and I both had some of the first toys, I believe, of him that had come out way back when the movie was first released. We had the same plushie of him. His was a little more fat-faced than mine, I believe. But either way, Mewtwo, special place in my heart, of course, from seeing Pokemon the first movie, which I will be talking more about in depth on a future one of these. But I put him a little low on the list just because, like, I find, he's just an easy one of those to just, whatever. Which you might be surprised on that same note by some of the ones in the later part of the list. But either way, Mewtwo's fantastic. They built a really, really cool character out of him, both in the video games and in the animation stuff, just like kind of what his whole backstory was, and a lot of interpretation of like what the deal is with him and everything. He ended up being a really intriguing character beyond just looking cool, having cool powers and all that. So Mewtwo's great, but I put him down here just because I feel like it's pretty typical for most people, no matter what the generation is, that they love Mewtwo, and that's great. That is really cool that like he has become that iconic for being so cool. For sure, but there are other ones that I like more than him. That said, number 8, a tie between Latios and Latias. This is also definitely because of the movie, which was Pokemon Heroes, the 5th movie. Latios and Latias were really kind of one of the big standout things about that movie. I remember it being one of my favorites as a kid, and again, I'll be talking more about the movie itself when I do a Kirblog about that. But it didn't hold up quite as well as I remembered it. But yeah, that said, Latios and Latias, like as characters in that movie, I remember being kind of the big highlights. And I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, they were among the first of the Ruby and Sapphire Pokemon that were teased in that kind of area of time. And Ruby and Sapphire, on just a little bit of a minor note, I will say Ruby and Sapphire, I think I overhyped for myself, and I ended up being like kind of disappointed like when those games came out eventually. It's one of the few Pokemon games I've actually never finished. So I wasn't super fond of that generation with, no hate or anything. I'm hopefully going to be finally playing my copy of Omega Ruby that little Kariba bought for me like an entire Christmas ago that I still haven't opened because I'm a piece of shit. But that aside, Latios and Latias of the Ruby and Sapphire generation were like the ones that definitely lived up to the hype, I guess, in that way, because I really found kind of the whole creation process and then the lore behind like them being the guardians of the city and of this like kind of Venice type of city and everything to be really, really intriguing. And if anything, they almost kind of felt like an improved, like more interesting version of like Lugia. And not to say that Lugia isn't cool in his own right, but Latios and Latias, like as a dynamic of characters, I found to be like really adorable and like really cool and mysterious and intriguing and stuff. I love their designs. I found the kind of like the human disguise thing of them also kind of intriguing. I think that's actually been used in other stuff beyond just the movie as well. I thought that was kind of cool because like there's very few Pokemon that even like have that sort of element brought in with them as well. But yeah, so they're out there. I believe they're the only Ruby and Sapphire Pokemon on this list, unfortunately. Sorry about that, but I do love them. They're fantastic, and maybe I'll go back and watch Pokemon Heroes again at some point. Number 7, moving on. Ho-Oh, of course, the mascot of Pokemon Gold, and was around since the first episode of the TV show, and how much of his presence has been engraved in our lives for all this time. In the context of the universe of the show as well, he seems to still be like this giant enigma, really. We've gone into the backstory of him, which is more or less the same kind of deal as it was in the video game of him, like being part of Ecruteak City, and the building gets burned down, which created Entei, Raikou, and Suicune as well, which was also a very cool story in and of itself. I found kind of the symbol of Ho-Oh kind of is like a symbol of like the mystery and like the intrigue and how big the world is and how how much stuff there is out there that we've yet to discover. I find Ho-Oh as kind of like a beacon of that, in the fact that like there's still so much about that character that we don't really know. Even beyond like its backstory as it's been presented and all that. Ho-Oh is still like a very mysterious and cool and beautifully designed Pokemon. To find out that in the end that it was also just like a fire/flying type Pokemon was kind of interesting and sort of unexpected too. But that it's almost always been on my team whenever I play through the Generation 2 games. I think even when I played the remake, it was still up there for me for sure. So he's definitely cool. He's been one of my favorite legendary Pokemon for ages, and I can still remember like I think some fan site in like still in the late 90s, I printed out like a full color picture of him. This was back when because Ho-Oh I believe literally just means golden bird, even though it's a rainbow bird. But at the time when it was shown in the first episode, it was just like pure gold because I guess the design wasn't finalized yet or something. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, we saw that and it was like, oh, like golden bird was what we knew it as for a very long time. But yeah, Ho-Oh was fantastic, and much love to Generation 2. And speaking of which, moving on, number 6 for me is Celebi. Kind of further along the element of intrigue. I feel like a step further than what Ho-Oh is. Celebi is that even more so. Celebi has so much mystery to it in all of its different kind of interpretations and its different iterations, in that it comes from various different time periods and things. Pokemon Movie 4, Pokemon Forever, is also definitely up there as one of my favorites for sure. Really, really fantastic movie. And Celebi's bond with Ash and the young Professor Oak character in that was really special. And even leading up to that, too, Celebi kind of like really asphyxiated itself in my imagination, because I really tried to imagine like, okay, this is the Mew equivalent character of Generation 2, because Gold and Silver still wasn't out. It took a long time for it to get localized and come out over here. So I'd seen Celebi in like, poorly rendered with like, screen caps and like gross looking drawings and inaccurate pieces of fan art, as I'm sure Arceus and, some other certain Pokemon I won't mention have been, suffered as well. But at the time, also, I was just completely like, what is this thing? Like, what could it possibly be? I had all these, like, thoughts and theories and all these, like, ridiculous things in my head, just, like, all floating around in terms of, like, what could this mysterious, like, psychic / grass type Pokemon? The fact that it was also grass type, because grass is very, like, underappreciated, I feel. I actually do, like, have kind of a soft spot for grass types in general because I think they're pretty cool. But I don't know. I just found it like really, really interesting, and it like sparked so much in my imagination as like a 10 to 11-year-old or whatever it was. And it didn't disappoint either. Like it also lived up to the hype. I feel completely, because Gold and Silver is my favorite overall generation, I would say, in terms of like just like everything all together. But what we eventually got with Celebi in the movie was awesome. I am sad that we never got to see its originally planned storyline with the GS ball and everything, because that would have been cool. But I mean, I get like why they didn't end up going that route and why they kind of abandoned that. It sucks, but it is what it is. I'll probably talk more about that in some other point about the show. But I know I'm talking so much about the show and the movies and everything. I know, but and also I do remember actually getting Celebi as my first shiny Pokemon. A friend who had like a Game Shark or something, just like I wanted to have a Celebi on my team really bad in my silver version, so he gave me a pink Celebi, which I think was kind of what ended up being the sort of inspiration for the design of Softy from Tome, kind of a cross between that and Majin Buu in a way. So yeah, much love for Celebi, one of my favorite legendaries for sure. All right, after that, number 5. Here's another stereotypical one, but for very good reason. Number 5 is good old Charizard for me. Now, here's the reason why. Beyond just, the fact that, like, of course, he was my first starter Pokemon, as I mentioned in the previous one. For both my blue and my red version, he was on my team for that. And of course, he's an iconic, like one of the, more well-known characters that has just kind of been throughout everything. And I was actually kind of not surprised that they made him into a separate character in the new Smash Brothers instead of having him be part of the Pokemon Trainer. As interesting and unique as the Pokemon Trainer character was from like a gameplay standpoint in Brawl, Charizard was the one that was the most satisfying to play as. So I kind of understood why they went that route. But my main reason for why Charizard is my number 5 favorite Pokemon is the fact that I ended up kind of making up my own sort of, not personality, because he had a personality. Ash's Charizard had a defined personality in the TV show as being kind of the, surly, like gruff, kind of douchebaggy sort of, I don't have to listen to you kind of thing. But particularly when I was a kid, and this might have been like the early, kind of ideas of me wanting to do voiceover eventually, was I kind of gave Charizard a voice. Or not so much a voice, but just I would like come up with lines for him. So like when Ash would be like, "Come on, Charizard, like, we if you don't get up, like we're gonna lose the Pokemon League," and I'd just be like talking over the footage, being like, I really don't feel like it today, so I'm just gonna do this. Yeah, you can go fuck yourself, kind of thing. And so I did that for a long time, and it was just kind of, I remember it was when I was going back and rewatching a lot of the season 1 episodes, because I had them collected on VHS and DVD because I'm out of my mind. But yeah, it was just a lot of fun to like build off of the character that was already there and like, kind of relive the magic of watching those episodes. This was in like my mid-teens, like mid to late teens. I was like coming up with a stupid voice for him and like doing all these lines and everything. So that was a fun kind of time in my life to do that. And then following that would be Totodile. Totodile, obviously, those of you who know my character from the TV series with Corey and everything, Totodile was Corey's main Pokemon. So of course, and even back in the Gold and Silver, the Generation 2 Johto season episodes, Ash's Totodile was also super adorable as well. And at the time, it was one of Mike Lucas's favorite Pokemon actually. So I had kind of like. I had fond memories of because he was, I think Totodile and Farfetch'd, like back in the day, were Mike Lucas's 2 favorite Pokemon, so I was always kind of heavily exposed to them. And then when I found out that the character I booked on Pokemon for, doing voiceover had a Totodile, I was like, oh, this is awesome, this is so cool. And they even brought Casey Rogers to come back and do this sort of Donald Duck type of voice for him as well, which was really cool. So that was, I remember, I think IMDb even had Tony Anselmo listed as the voice of Totodile, and I'm just like, no. Actually, guys, doesn't work that way. Just because he sounds like Donald Duck doesn't mean he's actually the voice of Donald Duck. But yeah, so Totodile was awesome. The Corey's Totodile in the series as well was cool, and just getting to do all the catchphrases and everything with him. It's more associated because of my getting to work on the series, of course. But Totodile himself is also a great character, and I think he's probably my favorite of the
the Johto starters in particular. In contrast to Charizard, by the way, who just came right before him, I do like Charmander and Charmeleon as well as Croconaw and Feraligatr, but these two of those three forms for each of those evolutionary lines are my favorite among them, so I put them specifically. But the others in tandem are also really cool. All right, coming up next, this might be a little bit of an unexpected one, but Poliwhirl is my number 3. This is also kind of a personal one where, so I had, for some reason, I think it was because of the fact that he was like one of the favorite Pokemon of, I think Satoshi Tajiri, the creator. Oh, no, that's right. He liked Poliwag, but Poliwhirl was in like a lot of the early merchandise along with like, it was like Pikachu, Jigglypuff, Gengar, Poliwhirl, like not all of the like the most iconic ones, but just Poliwhirl happened to have a lot of merch of him. So I had a lot of toys and dolls and like figures and cards and things of him. So I grew kind of just attached to him like by proxy. And I remember there was some unintentional mystery surrounding him because this was also back in the day when it was actually really exciting to find out what the Pokemon were going to sound like. Nowadays, it's not as exciting just because there's been so many of them and there's only so many different unique voices that you can do. Even though the likes of the cast do still try to differentiate them as much as possible, a lot of them ended up kind of sounding the same. Even back when 4Kids was doing it as well, like that was kind of being the case. But either way, Poliwhirl was kind of a cool exception to this because he never got to speak at all in the show until way later. And so I had like these these dolls and everything. I gave him kind of like my own sort of like Poliwhirl, like kind of like a ribbity kind of noise for him or something. He sounded kind of like the Captain Ginyu frog from DBZ at the time when Ginyu's body got swapped around or whatever. But anyway, so I did a little bit of that, and so that was just kind of fun for me to just do that. And then eventually Pokemon Puzzle League came out. I had to unlock Lorelei from the Elite Four. And Poliwhirl was one of her Pokemon, and then of course he speaks, and it's Poliwhirl, and I was like, oh god, that's lame, I don't like that. And then of all things, Misty just so happens to get a Poliwag in the show, and in the episode where it fights against, they have a battle between him and Ash, with Misty's Poliwag with Ash to compete over getting Totodile. And Poliwag eventually evolves into Poliwhirl, and then a Poliwhirl was on the main team. I was like, yes, this is awesome. And he had a cooler voice with the sort of Poliwhirl. I don't agree with that, Poly. And then he became Politoed, which is lame. But Poliwhirl is the best. He's my fave, and he's awesome. And I think even Red from Pokemon Adventure had him as well. So that was a cool one. Moving on, this is number 2, is Pikachu. Yes, in fact, Pikachu is amongst my favorite Pokemon. This is a simple and easy one for me to describe. He is iconic, he's adorable, he's badass, he has the range to do anything and everything at all, and he befits everything. He's so incredibly memorable for a reason. He's the Golden Arches to McDonald's. He is that to Pokemon, more or less. And I've just never really gotten tired of them. Like, I still can't imagine this alternate reality where, like, Clefairy or somebody was picked as the alternate, like the mascot of the Pokemon franchise. Like, Pikachu just works so well. And even still seeing him in any way, shape, or form, he still brings a smile to my face. Like, whether it's the show or the games, the cards, the toys, whatever, the fucking Macy's Day Parade balloon, when he shows up once in a while to that. Pikachu is great. And I think, I don't know. And I do like Raichu and Pichu. They're both cute. And, obviously the off-brand, sort of Pikachu electric rodent characters from each generation or whatever are also amusing. But, yeah, Pikachu is just, he's always going to be up there. He's just, I don't know. He's just so ingrained in our society. He's like, look, as John Tron was joking about, I just looking at Pikachu. He makes the money from my wallet dislodge already to buy more Pokemon shit. And then last but not least, absolutely my number 1 favorite Pokemon is a tie between Scyther and Scissor, leaning a little bit more towards Scyther. I remember waking up on Christmas morning, just like around the holidays of this time, way back in 98, and it was the Showdown at Dark City episode of Pokemon that aired. I was watching that, and I saw Scyther in action for the first time. I'd seen him, in the player's guides and the games and stuff, but not extensively. And then I saw him in that episode. I thought he was the coolest goddamn thing ever. And I think before we met officially, Mike Lucas has memories of me running out in the playground of our elementary school, screaming "Scyther!" like a psychopath, and thinking, "Wow, that kid's a dork." And then we got married and had 10 beautiful children. But Scyther has just always been super, super badass, and he's he has never changed as my favorite Pokemon of all time. I do also really like Scissor, mostly because both he and Scyther tend to get a lot of the coolest fight scenes in the anime and TV shows and things like that. So their designs are badass and everything as well. So they're awesome. Anytime I can ever find any kind of like toys or cards or anything of them too, that always makes me really happy. So I love those two. I love getting to draw them at any point. I'm sure I'll have Scyther somewhere in the picture of this one somewhere. But so I think I even also drew Kerbifer when I was drawing the tone characters with Pokemon that were associated with them. I gave Kerb a Scyther because I thought I was being super cool like that. Because I don't know, maybe he would have one if they existed in the context of Tome or something. I don't fucking know. Whatever. But yeah, so those are my top 10 favorite Pokemon. That's going to wrap us up. This is a short, simple, pretty straightforward one. But in the comments below, tell me your top 10 favorite Pokemon and why for each of them. You don't have to tell me why, but if you want, it ain't nothing but a heartbreak. I want it that way. So leave me your top favorites and everything. Tell me why if you want anything like that. And if you have suggestions for future Pokemon-related Kirblog topics in the coming weeks of Pokécember, leave a comment about that too. I've still got plenty coming up. Not sure what the next one will be, but look forward to it. And thank you all for listening, and I will catch you all later in a Pokeball. 10 of you. 6 of you. However many I can muster.